Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi, Rekha.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. So let me begin officially. Shraddha says that we are live, so let's start. So welcome to the Teaching the Next Gen webinar 10, which is really about something that we all care about, which is the 21st century skills. And we are very glad to see you after the Diwali break with really, really amazing speakers for today. Today we have with us Professor Rekha Koul and Professor Rachel Sheffield from Curtin University. So let me begin by introducing them, and then I'll request them to start their talk. So Rekha Koul is a Dean International and Faculty of Humanities and an Associate Professor at School of Education at Curtin University, Australia. Her expertise lie in investigations of effects of classroom environments on student outcomes, evaluation of educational programs, and teacher action research aimed at improving their environment, evaluation of curriculum as well. She has more than 100 publications to her credit and strong record of securing research funding, which includes 3 ARC grants. And she has been the recipient of university and state research awards as well. Rekha also convenes International Conference on Science, Mathematics and Technology Education, a biannual conference in different parts of the world, and has established a Learning Environment Research Center in Indonesia. She is a chair of Learning Environment SIG, a regional editor of Learning Environment International, a Springer journal, and is on the editorial board of many educational journals. So Rekha has been actively engaged in professional development of in-service and pre-service teachers in India, and as a result has also published 2 books in this area and is a part of prestigious Vaibhav Summit, which was initiated by India's current Prime Minister. So thank you, Rekha, for joining us. Rekha will be
Pleasure.
accompanied. Yeah, thank you so much. Rekha will be accompanied by Professor Rachel Sheffield, and she is an associate professor in the School of Education at Curtin University, uh, also from Australia, and is a passionate science educator. She researches and publishes in science, STEM education, and professional identity, and is currently exploring the transversal competencies and their roles in STEM. Rachel has won several faculty, university, and national awards for teaching excellence and was awarded an Executive Endeavour Fellowship in 2016 and was inducted into the 2020 Women's Hall of Fame for her work in STEM and science education over 35 years. She is also the chair of prestigious Curtin Academy for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. Her research and grants in STEM education has seen her travel to India, Indonesia, Malaysia, supporting pre-service teachers and primary students to develop expertise in STEM content and 21st century skills. A steminist research group, she co-founded supports women in STEM education and it was nominated for the 2019 Premier Science Awards and the 2020 UNESCO Prize for Girls in Science for the impact on women in STEM. So we are really, really happy to have you both here. And, a webinar after Diwali break couldn't have been, without you guys. It's really our pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us. We are very keen to hear from you about 21st century skills and the role of Makerspace in developing those.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here, although it is a little odd because for us here, we are here on Saturday night. So it's a little bit different from normal Saturday nights, I have to say, but it's very exciting to be with you guys. So Rekha's going to be very surprised because when we discussed this, I set up the order of the slides and then I changed them because sometimes the way that you want to think about things changes. So we're interested. So this is Curtin University. It does actually look like that outside. It's a beautiful, sunny sort of evening. We're interested in talking about Makerspaces, STEM teaching and 21st century skills. So when I thought about this, it was, do I start looking with Makerspace? Do we start with the STEM? And how does it all fit together? And this is why we're thinking about this over the week to present this to you. I think I start with STEM. I think that is the really nice entry point in this. So for us in education, when we think of STEM, there's a very wide-ranging conversation around what that actually looks like. But I think there's a few things that everybody agrees on. They agree that STEM, whatever it looks like, is extremely important. This is a lovely UNESCO quote. It talks about its importance and impact in health and agriculture, infrastructure, renewable energy. And so STEM education is also vital. And to be honest, at the moment when the world is reeling from the effects of COVID-19 and the race for the vaccine, it hasn't been more obvious a time for the value of STEM. I think it's a terrible time, but it also is a very glorious time to be in science and to be in STEM, where we see the data from big data from scientists with their mathematics. We're listening to health and the science experts more often than we're listening to politicians, and I think that is a really powerful way that we are valuing our educators. So we're talking about STEM. I just wanted to bring you some more research-based notion that STEM is still, it's really important. They're projecting there's going to be a shortfall in the US from by 2022. They're going to have a decrease in the number of STEM and an increase in the number of jobs, but a decrease in the number of people to take those jobs. So how do we invest students into being good STEM learners? And so I was looking the other day, it's about solving problems, and STEM is going to be the answer to all the problems that we've got in the world, and therefore we're going to really need to be able to create students that are able to work in that space. And these are just some of the quotes from different. So
Rachel, just let me quickly mute everyone. That has, I guess, not been done. Just sorry for that. That's okay now. So sorry, continue. Sorry.
Rachel, you may have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I guess we're good now.
No, I think you clicked twice, so it just got mute again.
While that is happening,
Rachel is, she has to unmute. Yeah.
yes, now we're good.
Okay.
Sorry, let me ask all the participants to keep their mics on mute, something that I forgot at the beginning of the webinar, so that we can have an uninterrupted session so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're looking at how important it is for STEM. So you can see all this rhetoric coming out, but it's very difficult to see how it conceptualizes in the classroom. So we've got a global currency in 21st century economies, with skills coming forward as being part of STEM. So when we're looking at STEM, we're also thinking about the notion of skills. And for example, this was in 2017 in Forbes magazine. They're talking about leadership, communication, collaboration. It says millennials tend to excel at these, or at least know that they should. So we've got the notion of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But in all the research, we think it's so much more. We're thinking not just we're looking at science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but we're very interested in the skills component of that. And there's a lot of debate. Now, in education, we are really quite comfortable with skills. We know that there are lots and lots of really valuable skills, and some of the research that's going on is talking about how they cannot be learnt by computers. Computers cannot collaborate. They cannot demonstrate resilience. I suppose they could still demonstrate persistence, but they can't demonstrate resilience, communicate, they can't do leadership. So these are skills that are extremely important. And the content knowledge is important, but it becomes less important with the advent of the internet, where we can go and find that information. So we've been working around the transversal competencies. So these are the soft skills, they call them, which I really dislike because I think it undersells them. They're called the 21st century skills. There's a whole range of ways that they are talked about. But what we're talking about is we're talking about communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. Sometimes problem solving comes in with critical and creative thinking. There's all those skills that underpin that. So when we've been looking at this, see, here's where it gets a little bit complicated. The transversal competencies, while we talk about them broadly, very straightforward. We've got to teach students to collaborate. We've got to teach students how to be creative. That's great. We say that, we're academics, we all say that, but what we don't do is give teachers instructions on how to teach them. And not just how to teach them, but how to assess them. And more than that, we don't value the assessment of them. So we're telling people it's coming out of all the literature, it's coming out from big business. We need students with these skills, but we are not doing a really good job at translating them for teachers. We're just telling teachers, teach these students. So what we've done here, and this was where it gets a little bit complicated, we've looked at the transversal competencies down on the left-hand side. Now, the transversal competencies actually fall into these 5 categories: critical, innovative thinking, interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, global citizenship, and media and information literacy. Now, if you have a look in the middle column, these are the sorts of things that fit in that category of critical and innovative thinking. So creativity, entrepreneurship, resourcefulness, reflective thinking, decision making. Now, those words have been pulled out of a number of frameworks that we reviewed. So we just didn't look at the UNESCO transversal competencies. We looked at a number of frameworks. We drew in information from where Europe was looking in this space. And we went broadly with the UNESCO ones because they had most global reach. But what we found was we had them in the Australian curriculum. And in fact, when the UNESCO was putting together their transversal competencies, they brought in people from around the world. The Australian general capabilities informed into the UNESCO transversal competencies, along with a lot of other conversations from lots of other frameworks. But I wanted to put that in because I think that's quite important, that it went from the right-hand side to the left-hand side rather than the other way around. So interpersonal skills, all those sorts of things about working with others, showing compassion, teamwork, collaboration, organizational skills, empathy. There are other words that fit in those key skills there too. I'm not saying these are the only ones. If you look at the intrapersonal ones, they're the things that people need internally. Resilience can sit in that. Flexibility, maybe perseverance instead of resilience. Compassion, risk-taking, sense of belonging, self-discipline. And then in the global citizenship, awareness and tolerance, respect for diversity, and so forth. And they map across to the Australian general capabilities really quite well. The numbers in that middle column, which I've left in, actually relate to the number of times those words appear in the Australian curriculum. And I'm sure if we did a similar activity, and I think it would probably be really worthwhile to do that when the new curriculum is in place for India, to go and have a look at where these words are used, because we're very good at making up that high level rhetoric. In fact, policymakers are extraordinarily good at it. So what I've done here, and I don't want to go too deep with this because, as I said, we haven't got very much time. But what I've done here is I've looked at how we have in the Australian curriculum brought the general capability of critical and creative thinking down into a number of elements, and then those go into sub-elements. And when you get into the sub-elements, they are starting to become measurable. And that is how the Australian curriculum has tried to deal with this. So you're looking at that going, well, Australia's got this all nutted out. Not quite, and I'll tell you why in a minute. What we have looked at, though, as Rekha and I have been looking at, is how the STEM content knowledge and the STEM skills fit together. And we've been trying to we've been working on a theoretical framework that pulls everything together. This is one that is taken from colleagues of ours who are very highly regarded and esteemed colleagues who've been working in this area for, I think, probably between them over 100 years, seriously. Leonie Rennie is in her late 70s, John Wallace also in his 70s. They are very, very experienced in thinking about this. And they looked at this from a notion of separated disciplines and integrated discipline, and then local problems that captured students' interest, and then how you could relate them to a global situation. And that really probably doesn't sort of nut it as a theoretical framework. We've been looking at how we can do that in a more specific way. So looking at the values or the skills around the content knowledge. And it works very, very well. We can give students a problem, they can look at the problem within their community, they can break it down into different aspects, and they'll use science and they'll use maths and they'll use technology and engineering to work out how to solve that problem. And they'll use a range of these skills as they go through as well, especially if they work as a team. What's the problem with that goes back to where schools are in the scheme of things. So I did say to you that we have the general capabilities which look at all these skills. The problem is, though, they're not assessed. So we go back to STEM at school being, especially in secondary school, being siloed. And we have an overcrowded curriculum for the general part of it, especially in the secondary space. And therefore, we have a silo of subjects, and the science teacher teaches the science, and the maths teacher teaches the maths, and the technology teacher teaches the technology. And engineering really doesn't appear in that because engineering is not really it's not a subject. And students are heading to the tertiary space. They're looking at their subjects. They really are not thinking about skills. And in the secondary space, the teachers don't have an opportunity to do it. So what comes out is that STEM sounds fabulous, and the skills can be embedded into STEM. But what happens is when you go higher into the space, then the focus then becomes back on exams. And what we find, as I said to you, we don't have the E. And the consequence to this is we have a reduced number of students engaging with STEM as a whole, as science and the technology and the mathematics, as in individual subjects, and definitely less thinking about STEM as an area, because, as I said, they do physics exams and biology exams. And from what I understand, India is the same. So how do we fix this? And the other thing I would put here on this particular slide is the issue around the notion of failure, and that students are spectacularly scared to fail at anything that they try, and therefore they want to know the right answer. And how do we get them to build resilience when they don't want to put themselves out to be risk takers. Because normally if you're a risk taker, especially when you're in secondary school, that makes a huge difference to how you end up in the scheme of things, whether you end up in a top class or whether you end up back in a class that is not one of the advanced classes. So we have this whole issue around teaching skills, that they're not valued, they're not assessed. We're still focused on exams, and we are in Australia. And as I said, I have a hunch from my work in India, and Rekha and I were very lucky to be in India earlier this year. Gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago, but definitely this year. And it seems to be the space in the space for you. So what we have been proposing is that we give them something to do, not something to learn. This is a quote from Dewey, and the picture on the left-hand side is around something that we do in the makerspace. So we're getting students to make things. So this leads us to creating makerspaces and using them not just, and I think I'm going to have to, Rekha and I are going to have to talk about this particular definition, because I think it needs to be upgraded or updated. We've had this for a little while about a physical or online space where people can gather to make or to create new things. And I think what we need to talk about there as well is about encouraging failure, productive failure. I saw this in a piece of student work the other day. I was very impressed by this. The notion of productive failure and how productive failure can actually help them create with those skills, gathering those skills. So we've been working with Makerspace for a fairly long time, and we've been looking at what we can do to help students. And these pictures, we've worked with boys and girls, but these pictures show our very first few makerspaces where we were engaging students to make a product. Now, we think that when we do some of these makerspaces, sometimes it's nice to have them really open, and students can do what they like, make what they want. And sometimes if you want to teach a specific content, then you can guide the students by giving them an idea of something that they're going to make. What we've been looking at is something called the Makerspace approach. And we've been writing, we're actually nearly through a textbook, nearly at the final draft stage of a textbook that's looking at different ways that you can use Makerspace. So we use what's called a Makerspace approach. We are actually going to make a specific product with students, but we do not give them instructions. We will show them the artifact that we want them to make, and then they need to work out how they're going to do that. And often they have already learned some of the theoretical frameworks that sit beside that content. Not always, though, can they translate that theoretical base into a hands-on way of doing something and showing application of the work. This, for example, there's a couple of these. This one up here is the Wigglebot. It has to be, I think, Rekha and I are my favorite one. I've bought so many batteries and motors from China. They think I'm doing something quite sinister with them. I think I've had over 1,000 over time. But we get the kits, we show the students a video or a working model, and we ask the children to create the model. Now, when we do that with the primary school students, so this is a primary activity, both of these are primary activities, students have studied electricity normally. Theoretically, they have. They've done it in theory. They've learned all about it. They know, and you give them those items though, the battery, the motor, and you say, we're going to get this to work. And all of a sudden, a lot of the time, they're really stumped. And it can be a very challenging situation for them to be in. So I think it's actually a very interesting space to do, but we are trying in our Makerspace to make this it's a low level of activity in the sense that there isn't high stakes to it. So when students do it, they are able to do it in a way that is a very calm and gentle environment. We get the mentoring, and we just want them to have a go. And as I said, the Makerspace, this activity is a really good one. So a bit more about this activity. This is we give them the kit at the front there. We get them to make it, and we then think about the science, the inquiry, the technology, the engineering in this project. So although the children in your grade 6 or grade 5 that do this don't necessarily see this, when we teach it to pre-service teachers or to teachers, in-service teachers already trained, we often will unpack the information behind it. And I use this for my pre-service teachers, and I get them to think about not just the content, so the science content, the maths content, the engineering, but I also get them to have a think about the underpinning skills as well. And this works particularly well when my students do it, and I'm just marking a whole load of these at the moment for second and third year training teachers in training, to get them thinking about not just the content knowledge, but also the underpinning skills that students can be learning along the way. I'm going to talk very briefly about our international steminists, but then I'm going to get Rekha to talk a little bit more about them. So these are some of our steminists from internationally. So we use some of these projects and the Makerspace idea, and we went to different places. So the top right are our original steminists, all those beautiful young ladies. Some are science teachers, and some are engineering students. So both all are qualified now. They were our original steminists, came on to learn a little bit more about science. They're all primary, if they're teachers, they're primary teachers. So science is not, science and STEM subjects are not necessarily ones they are particularly comfortable with. And we paired them up with some engineering students who are very, very competent in that area. I think number one in that row and the last one in that row are both engineering students, and that they worked together with the content and skills. It also helped our engineers to gain those valuable skills as well. The left-hand side, you can see the engineering, the steminists from Indonesia. We had boys in that group as well. That was fabulous. We had a lovely time in schools making Wigglebots. Again, the students weren't familiar with the opportunity to have hands-on activities. So they really struggled with the making it work, and the fact that the teacher wasn't going to tell them. So the mentors went in and encouraged them. Why do you think that's not working? How do you think you could change that? Do you think you could make your Wigglebot more stable? What could you do? That was hard for the teachers to do, the pre-service teachers. It was very hard for students because they were always expecting an answer. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, that is from Bhopal. We did a fabulous activity with the pre-service teachers in Bhopal. So here's our STEMinist project. It's still ongoing, and we have a lot of fun. And we work through a Facebook community. We have our pre-service teachers and our engineering girls. They had to do the activity before they took it out to schools to make sure they could do it. And that was a lot about pizza and chat and conversation, and then talking about what kind of questions will we ask students when we go out. How can we get them thinking? We want our students to think. We don't want to keep telling them the answer. So that, and we used Facebook as a way of communicating with our STEMinists. And I think I'm nearly at the final bit where Rekha is going to take over from me. So we've workshopped a number of activities to do. We've worked in, as I said, multiple places, and you can see the Wigglebots and the teachers are talking to students about what they're finding out. So they're asking lots and lots of questions. I just like the photos. The one on the right-hand side, down the bottom right-hand side, was a group activity. So we were looking at collaboration and communication, and the students had to design a pipeline, and then they had to build the pipeline, negotiate it with a limited amount of materials, and they also then, so they did it themselves, and then they took it into the school, and then the students had to do it. And the teachers were not to tell the students the answer, because a pipeline can have multiple ways of being built and still meeting the design brief that we gave them originally. I think that's me done, so I can stop sharing. I think Rekha's going to take over from me.
Rekha, could we request you to switch on your video?
I have.
Yes, I
Yes.
hear now. Yes.
Great.
We're
Yes.
all good. We're all good to go.
Yeah. Can you see my PowerPoint, my
Yes.
slides?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm audible as well, hopefully.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you,
yes. We can see
Rachel.
the screen.
Thank you, Rachel, for setting the scene. And Rachel has very well explained what sort of makerspace and what are we trying to achieve through makerspace is more of getting these transversal competencies in students. In my talk today, moving from theory and what we have been doing internationally in various parts of the world, I'm going to talk specifically about what we have been doing in India and some successes, some productive failures, or maybe unsuccesses, whatever we call that. Moving to India, I would say, since we are writing this book, and I have been given charge of writing the chapter on makerspaces in India, I did some research and I found there are quite a few agencies which are running makerspaces in India. EduTech is possibly one of the main companies, and they have different types of activities under the banner of Makerspace, starting from artificial intelligence, robotics, hands-on tool, coding, programming, digital media. You talk of whatever you can fit into Makerspace. They have it, and my concern is to how many children it is accessible. I'm a big proponent of equity, and I feel their reach is only for select few. And this program is very structured, and it is sort of a cookbook recipe. It's not giving freedom to students to think, or what we are trying to do through our project. In addition to that, I found Curiosity Gym in Mumbai, and students have sanitary pad dispensers they have built. Collab House in Hyderabad, they made these brooms, or one of the amazing experiences we had earlier this year when Rachel and we visited IISER Pune. And more than, I would say, looking at the products, it was a passion in the team there. How they were working in their makerspace and whatever name they had given to that activities, that center, I should say. But again, it was very, very structured. in addition to that, I found there are quite a few, like Homi Bhabha centers, for science education, STEAM lab, Makerspaces, and many. There's one Makerspaces as well. But looking deeply into it, I found that all these services, although have been there for a while, but it's not accessible by a common child. And while talking to quite a few academics in India, I was told that we are very good with jugaad, and I found wonderful pictures like children finding through this mobile phone and filming their own play. It's really very ingenious. And during COVID time, how they are pumping out milk when milkman and maintaining the social distance. It's really ingenious. But at the same time, looking at the way we are going, if jugaad would have been the answer, by now, most of the problems of India would have been over. And to make real progress, India must embrace antithesis of jugaad: sound, smart planning, a culture of compliance, and the pursuit of excellence has to be adopted, and it can't be adopted, just in a jiffy. It has to be a culture which you inculcate right from beginning when children start going to school. Keeping that in view, what we did, we started, I'm going to talk about a few projects, and one of the projects which Rachel as well talked was taken up in Bhopal. We worked with pre-service teacher. Bhopal RI NCRT has a regional institute in Bhopal where they train pre-service teachers who have a 3-year BSc program, BSc B.Ed program. And we worked with these pre-service teachers. They built Wigglebot, Catapult, and Pipeline Activity, and few others. And then these pre-service teachers went and did the same activities with primary school children. These and why we were doing it, it's developing that confidence in these pre-service teachers, and then they go and work with students. You can see these teachers working with school children. This was pipeline activity. While we were doing pipeline activity, even the senior leadership of the RI Bhopal, they got involved. Neerja, can I have the video one, please?
Yes, yes.
On the first day of the workshop, we performed 2 activities. The first one was the making of Wigglebot. We were given certain materials. They were batteries, glass, 3 pens, and we were shown a video. Now, after seeing the video, we did not understand much of what exactly we had to make. So, but however, after working a lot, we finally made a Wigglebot. Now, I would like to say what's the science, mathematics, and the engineering in this Wigglebot. The science behind this is that the chemical energy is transformed into the electrical energy, which is further transformed into the vibrational energy, which tells the conservation of energy. Now, we have learned this principle in book, but we have never applied it in our practical knowledge. But with this activity, we really came to know how this transformation actually happens. On the first day of
Yes, I guess that's.
Yeah, so a simple activity gave them insights into the practical knowledge, the content knowledge of, and getting that cognition or intended knowledge. And at the same time, they were engaged and confidence. While when they will go in the classroom to teach this content, they will have that confidence to teach it. This was one of the aims we achieved through this project. As we have been talking about, that we wanted to develop transversal competencies. You can see how excited these girls were while they were doing these activities. And this is the pipeline where they were given specific instructions what to do, what should be the design like. Can I have the video too, please?
Yes.
For help, like can you help me, because not everyone is good at everything, so we can do teamwork, and that is the most amazing thing what I've learned, that is just go and ask people that can you help me at that. It is not like your ego is hurting or something like that. So that is the most amazing thing what I've learned about this during this STEM workshop. But one thing after this workshop is that I always had two superpowers: being a woman and being a teacher. And after this workshop, I'm meeting a new superpower, being a steminist.
Thank you, Nietzsche. So somehow we didn't get the video, but audio was audible. So that's fine, that's fine. What happened through this activity, I just wanted to talk about it, is they learned to collaborate, working in groups. Your ego is not getting hurt. If you don't understand something, ask the next person. Getting that self-confidence. As teachers, we are superpowers. We didn't do anything extraordinary, but simple activities, simple talk, and then them going and working with students within their campus. It really changed the whole balance in the RI Bhopal as well as that school. So in a way, what I'm going to say is simple activities do make a huge difference if they are pedagogically sound. So based our success with first project, we did quite a lot in this project. We have quite a few publications, book chapters out of this project, but keeping time limitation in view, I just wanted to show you how students felt about it. I have lots of videos and lots of data about it. We can have it sometime later. Based on success of first project, we were funded by Australian government to develop digital STEM professional learning platform for Indian teachers. So what we were trying to look at, yes, you have the content knowledge, but what sort of pedagogies can be used when you are using the technology in teaching? And while we are looking at the PCK, pedagogical content knowledge, how do we collaborate and communicate, and what sort of framework can be used? So what did we do? We set up a teaching resource in Moodle. We had, in first instance, we didn't have, but over time, because in first instance, we were only testing the accessibility of this resource. Now all subtitles are in Hindi as well, so that it can be used by anyone and everyone around India, those who know India. So, those who know Hindi. So we set up this website in 4 courses. One was pedagogical approach, STEM as an international movement, project-based learning, and problem-based learning. And then towards the end was sort of assessment, which is teaching health check. And we go with this resource, and there are quite a few resources in this website, and we go with this website to India. Again, this time we went to Bhopal. In Bhopal, it's a long story, but they'd got tribal teachers for the website whose technological knowledge was very, very low. Very first day, they didn't know how to access even their emails and then register on the Moodle website. We had to restructure our workshop slightly or to a great extent. But surprisingly, second day of the workshop, all teachers come back for the workshop in the morning with the Moodle app downloaded on their smartphones. This was a huge learning curve for these teachers. So synthesis for me was teachers embrace technology quite fast. They had that capability. Here, I'll take you further. On our way back, when we reached Delhi, we were invited by Australian High Commission in Delhi, and they had invited high school teachers, and we ran this workshop with those high school teachers in Delhi. So the experience was very different. So for me, as I look at India, India is not one. There are many Indias in one India. And even the gender balance I found very different. In Delhi, only one male teacher, one science male teacher came for the workshop, while as in Bhopal, 40% of the teachers were males. As far as technology was concerned, or access to technology, rural teachers had very little access to technology, while as coming to urban area, in like Delhi, nearly 70% teachers had access to a laptop for more than 5 years. But if I look at a smartphone, again in Bhopal, if teachers less than 1 year and 1 to 2 years, this happened in 2018. So in 2018, between 17 and 18, 50 to 60% teachers had bought smartphones, and it was increasing quite fast. And I'm sure after the COVID time, most teachers would have it and they must be using it. So we got to be really very careful about when we are using these programs, and if we are taking them in online mode, who has the capacity and capability to access it. Teachers, they indicated that there is a large divide in digital space between teachers in richer schools of Delhi and remote areas in Bhopal, where we saw these teachers. While it seems that 4G and mobile phones have arrived throughout India, there's still a gap, and the feedback I'm getting around COVID time, that still continues. And although Indian government is all working very hard towards taking everything in online mode, but upskilling Indian teachers is still a conundrum for me. And how do we do it? But that is what is required.
Rekha, sorry
teachers,
to again. I was just wondering if you wish to share your PPT. Because we are not able to see your slides.
You can't hear me?
we can't see your slides, so we were wondering if.
Okay, what happened? I don't know.
Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt again, but it's going great. Sorry.
Okay, I'll go on. Okay, then what happened?
No, I think when we switch to the video, you may have stopped sharing your screen, and then you just have to get back to sharing your screen again, maybe.
Do you want me to, Rekha, or are you happy to?
No, I can do it. That's not a problem. I better close this. Share screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a minute. I just switched it. I better go from here. Yes. Can you see it now?
Yes. Okay, great.
So let me move ahead. Teachers have high confidence. They think that, they can teach 21st century skills, and they have they value teaching 21st century skills to their students. Moving on from there, let me go, since we are short of time. Earlier this year, we went to many schools around Delhi and did the same activities with, newspapers. We didn't have any high-tech material with us. And it was amazing to see that children were involved. The feedback they gave us was they were learning. And they were not only learning the content, but they were learning the desired skills. And that's what we need. We need to teach our teachers and put our energies in the pedagogy of what can be taught and how do we use locally available cheap material. Although currently our Prime Minister has, through Weber program, put energies in digital learning technologies and content designing for online education. Our new national education policy advocates focus on discovery, preparation of abstract thinking, and multidisciplinary learning with technology, redefining everything around it. But it comes with challenges. Challenges of, do we have the required technological infrastructure? How are we going to upskill our 9 million plus teachers? And now that we have added even early childhood education in our curriculum, how is that going to happen? Although NEP advocates spending 6% of GDP on education, but currently we are spending around 3.2, and it's envisaged that with the economic downturn due to COVID, our GDP on education may be further cut down to around 2%. So what are we going to do? And although NEP is an ideal document in principle, but we got to be aware that the teachers who were trained in conventional way will be teaching the new curriculum. Do they have those skills? So how are those pedagogical shifts going to look like? Then other issue I have is the equity issue. How are we going to get all children to school? I'm told there is, again, statistics coming out that we have huge number of children who are left out of school due to COVID, and they don't have access to technology. Although we have right to education was implemented more than a decade back, but there were still 42 million children who were out of school, and due to COVID, many more have joined them. And at the same time, if we are trying to go technology rich, there is danger of privatization and commercialization. Our schools are almost, school education is almost privatized. Very few government schools are functional. Are we going even higher education in a private mode? These are some dangers which I can see, but if we train our teachers to use makerspace-like activities in rich content, pedagogical ways, some of the dangers can be managed. That's my way of thinking. Thank you. Yeah, so what can we do? We can explore local existing resources. We need to use evidence-based, culturally appropriate online training modules for teachers. Invest in research, which India is quite weak till now. We need to look at new pedagogies that build lifelong learners. That's which we should be doing. India hasn't engaged industry well till now, but we will have to get industry on board and look at the international success stories, which we can adopt and adapt. Thank you. That's from me. And any questions, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel and Rekha both. As I said, this webinar really adds the global perspective, and also at the same time, learning so many things about schools in India that, as you clearly put it through, there are many Indias in one India. So thank you for bringing the national perspective to it as well. We have quite a bit of questions, and many people are mentioning a lot of things in the chat, but I'll begin with one of the questions that has come. It is a question by Mausami Chatterjee, and the question is there an online makerspace that we can join?
Rachel, can you take it?
Well, actually, I've been looking at another comment that's come in that's got best makerspaces in India as the URL. So I think there must be the steminist community tends to be a more transmissive than collaborative, which is problematic. But our makerspaces are working extremely well in the physical sense. I think that's a great opportunity. Our schools are still focused in that way. The challenges for collaboration in a virtual space are still being dealt with in universities. So I think that makerspaces, it's quite challenging. Although I was talking yesterday with a colleague of ours who's also involved in the book, and she was talking about Minecraft as a virtual makerspace. And so that was actually very interesting. And I think that might well be a really good example of a makerspace online. I'm not sure you can necessarily join, but I have heard communication, collaboration going on in Minecraft. And then when I broached it to my son, he was quite happy to create a makerspace in Minecraft for me. So I think that that's actually quite an interesting place to go next in terms of, can we create these spaces? So creating opportunities. And I think the things that we're finding out as we're writing this book and we're interrogating this subject, makerspaces have to be areas for productive failure. I think giving students an opportunity, so you can have them as on a spectrum. So we looked at makerspaces where students go in and decide what they want to make, and those can work really well, right up to much more structured makerspaces, a little bit more about from where Pune was, because they have very specific things they wanted to teach. So I think they can be across that spectrum. I think we have to go away from the idea of right and wrong. I think we look at purpose and we build purposefully. And when we encourage teachers to, which is what our book will be out to do, we're wanting teachers, we're wanting to empower them. I don't want to tell them what to do. I want to tell them that whatever decision they make, it's a thoughtful decision, and that is purposeful, and that will have a great outcome. So I think that is what I'd really want to encourage people to do. We're not here to say there's a step-by-step guide. There's things to think about, and that's what we're putting together. Have you thought about this? What's your purpose? What might you do? How can you do this? And we will put forward suggestions on how to encourage students to do critical thinking. How do we encourage them to be creative? And I've just been marking, we've been doing this for students in Year 6 classroom with my pre-service teachers. And one of the papers I marked yesterday, she said, my Year 6 student was very, very smart. He kept saying to me, will you just tell me the right answer? And he's getting more and more frustrated because we wanted them to create something out of a plastic bottle. And there wasn't a right answer. There was 112,000 possibilities. But there wasn't a right answer, and he found that almost impossible to deal with. And it's really, because he was probably one of the smartest in the class, but in this space he completely wasn't able to cope. So that was a kind of a really interesting thing, I think, about encouraging in Makerspace, and that's why I said they have to be low stakes, and they have to make students feel safe to have a go, to fail. And we had a great lesson that failed brilliantly, and the children never knew. My pre-service teacher said, oh, that didn't go well. And I said, did the students notice? They said, no. I said, that's okay. What was the learning outcomes? Can we have a look at those, and how would we remediate? And I think sometimes we don't fail enough. We don't show them how to fail. Rekha and I fail frequently. Papers come back all the time.
Terms that you used very beautifully was the term productive failure, and I guess we all need to learn how to fail productively and how to teach our students to fail productively. Rekha, you had something to add to it.
Yeah, we have to be specific with this question. What teacher Mosumi asked is, we have this steminist website where we have already put in the activities we do, and some of them fail, some of them are successes, but we do put them there, and anyone wanting to use them, it was in Rachel's PowerPoint presentation, they can have a look at it and use those ideas. But what is advocated is, suit them to your own environment. Just look at an activity, you adopt it or adapt it to your own requirements. And also add to them. If you find a new activity, we would be happy to have those and try them with our students here.
Right.
Let us know, and let's compile. And that is collaboration on global scale. And that's what we were looking at.
We do. Go on, Rekha. Go on, Rekha.
And then our book will be coming out sometime next year, and possibly that will have many more ideas as well. Right. Yes, but Rachel.
What I was going to say, the other thing I really like, and someone here is talking about the rigor of STEM and maths, or science and maths in the STEM. I think you need to think about, and one of my other favorite ways to do this is a little bit less makerspace, in the sense that it's not always so hands-on, but that's around problem-based learning. So giving students a contextualized problem, and then, for example, getting them to use big data. So a big data analytics to solve the problem. And then you do get into quite technical maths and science. The issue with that, though, is that does the classroom teacher have the level of the big data maths to be able to do that with the students? And what we find from time to time is that teachers are quite anxious about that. And often teachers will go into a classroom where they want to run the lesson because they will run it within the science and maths that they know. And as soon as those students step out of that and ask a question that the teacher doesn't know the answer of, then there's a real anxiety that goes with that. And I think we have to help teachers to not always be the experts in that space and say to the students, actually, that's a fabulous question. We can go out and find that out. So, for example, the new STEM research has come out for WA. I was at the launch on Wednesday, Rekha, and at SciTech, you know, the new STEM resources. And one of our colleagues wrote one for big data. And the maths in that big data one at a grade 10 level is quite high level. So there are those sorts of resources that are out that do challenge and encourage students. So again, it depends on purpose. So if you're going to teach a specific science or maths, then you're going to need to think about how you can bring that in. And that's creativity. And teachers, my student teachers are quite surprised when I talk to them about how creative they need to be to teach well.
Thank you. I think you already answered Tarun's question as well. Tarun Chaubisa had asked that. And I guess Rachel also said in the chat that they have a Facebook page for STEMinists, and we all can join that and, you know, keep a track of different activities that get posted there and also participate ourselves. Any other way?
It's a closed Facebook, so you will have to send us a request and we will enter you there. Definitely. It's not an open Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay, so those, the reason why I'm asking is there are many requests in my personal chat which ask, how can we join STEMinists? So then in which case, what I would do is collect all the email IDs and then probably share an email with you that all of these amazing ladies would want to join.
Sorry, Nirja, we already have a page where students from Bhopal, for them we had, but I think they've gone quite silent these days. Okay. But you're most welcome to come and join us. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think that would be a nice space to start up the conversation. I think and then it becomes a very open, and I think Facebook is nice because it's a very open and flat structure. There's no experts. I think that's quite important. The only reason we monitor some of the Facebooks is because occasionally we get a commercial entity that starts something commercially. So we're just a little bit mindful of that. But I think they're nice because they're flat structures. And then when they work well, there's a lot of communication. And I tried this, how about you have a go with this? And, oh, wow, I tried it too, it worked really well. Or, oh, dear goodness, that was awful, and things like that. So I think we need to be a bit more open about our classroom doors as well. And I think sometimes the technology allows us to do that.
Thank you so much. I guess Apurva has a next question ready.
Hi. Yes, I do have the next question. Thank you so much for your responses to the previous one. And if I may add one more platform that I know of, which is of a similar nature in India, which is the Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education's Chat Shala. And they do this kind of thing, and the Chatshala platform is exactly what you were just talking about, Rachel, where people come and say, you know, I tried this didn't work, but that worked well, and what do you think of this, and so on. So that's also something that and people usually experiment and try things out with things which are very easily available and easy to monitor and tweak and so on. So yeah, and that brings me to the next question. We have a question again from Masumi Chatterjee, who asks, how do I enhance the critical thinking of my students? Don't I have to start thinking myself first before I do that? So I think, yeah, it would be nice to hear from you about this.
Yes, the answer to that, the short answer is yes.
Yes.
The long answer, I think you have to be quite creative to get students to think. But I think the first thing is setting up that culture in your classroom of acceptance, that they will not get to feel that what they say is not valued. And Rekha is an expert in classroom climate. And so I'm sure that she can provide some insights. I'm throwing you under the bus there, Rekha. Some insights.
In my last slide, I did talk about is we got to be aware of if we are implementing new educational policy, how do we do it? Because the teachers who will be teaching this new curriculum are trained in conventional ways. So we got to train, we've got to put effort in teacher training. Absolutely. And show them how to think critically. Yeah, it's stepping outside of your comfort zone and looking at what's happening worldwide. These days, knowledge is available everywhere, but is teacher motivated enough to make some changes in their teaching? One thing at a time, small steps will bring that change. And we are on the way. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, some bit of unlearning and relearning our methods and the things that we are used to incorporate the new ways of doing things. And I really also liked what both of you have said about productive failure. And we always talk about how teachers are models for their students. And I think one can also look at modeling failure for our students, and showing them how to fail productively is something that that teachers should think of. And, yeah, thank you for that answer, Neeraja. Sorry, you had something?
Sorry.
Yes,
I was just going to say, in Singapore, when I was reviewing some of the grants in Singapore, they actually set up makerspaces for teachers, in terms of the fact that the makerspace is as much for the teacher as it is for the students, and it's an encouraging space for both. Try the teacher to try different pedagogical approaches as well. So it's a playground or a sand pit or whatever we call them for teachers too. And I think they are low stakes. They can be a safe space for the teacher to try something different.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what I'd like to encourage teachers to do.
Yeah.
So I think if everybody tried that just a little bit in their classes, I think that's what Rekha said, baby steps, then eventually you'll feel braver to try it in larger environments. Context, and hopefully there'll be a change to pedagogy. But yes, it's a tricky thing to encourage.
Absolutely, agreed. It's not easy, but yeah, I think at some point we need a space to fail in peace, without the pressures of
without consequences.
Without consequences, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Neeraja, do you have the next one, or are we ready to wrap up?
Yes, actually I have a personal question, and this is a question from me. This is something that I always face whenever I'm engaging in makerspace or making something, maybe a science toy. How do we get away from the play aspect of it and really delve into the science aspect of it? Like, very often I see students being highly engaged when we are discussing it as a toy or as a game, but then I don't want it to remain as a game for the kids, but I want it to go much more deeper. I want them to discuss the science of it. How do we make sure that we keep these two things connected throughout the lesson that I'm teaching?
Well, I think when we did activities like we made the light, so you saw the origami light with the grade 6s, they took it home. They wanted it to work. It had a switch. They could turn it on and off. They wanted it to work by their bedsides. They were very engaged to want to do that. I think we have to give them a reason to want to get the understanding behind it. And that, I think, is a really difficult, I don't think I have a very clear answer on that for you, to be honest, because there are lots of things that I drive the car. I do not necessarily need to know how the engine works. I'm happy just to drive it. I think we have to know that sometimes that's going to be tricky, and keep persevering with it. So don't stop. I think what you do is a fabulous idea, but I think we have to pick and choose those sorts of things, and it's always going to be, because if we were all the same, if we were all deeply engaged in science and we were deeply interested, we'd all be science educators and there wouldn't be room for us. So I think we have to, know that we're not going to reach everybody, but you have engaged them. And if they end up in a space where they want to take it further and they do have an interest, then you've given them some of the strategies and skills to go and have a look for themselves. So maybe you didn't give them the content, but if you gave them the appetite and you gave them, the permission to be inquisitive, interested, engaged, and thoughtful, maybe they'll go off and find something else at a later date. And I think sometimes the skills then are better than the content knowledge.
Sure. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for such a wonderful webinar. As you said very clearly, this is one of the benefits of this pandemic, is that we can connect globally and learn from experts like you. Also share experiences that most of the education institutes across the globe are facing, especially with this pandemic. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. I think I will share the chat with you, and you will see that you can read it yourself, how your comments are. Everyone is really happy with the webinar and everyone is saying thank you. Let me just quickly read through the comments if there is anything that we wish you to address.
No, I love just reading Tarun's comment. Developing the mastery of subject is important.
For a little while, so that you can address some of the concerns.
Well, most of the people are in a hurry to know the answer rather than figuring it out. So, and he's asking what should be done. As I said to you, I think some things need to be figured out, some things don't. And I like the conversation, and I think this is the bit that our students, we want to encourage students to. There's this conversation, and we shouldn't be frightened of conversations, and we shouldn't be frightened of the fact that people come from different spaces. So I don't necessarily know I can solve your problem around students not wanting to know, but that's ongoing, and some of these things are going to be ongoing. So I wish I had the answer to everything.
Can I add something here? It's not important. A few teachers have told me, one of the best who got a prime ministerial award, and it's a dear colleague of ours. A few years back, he told me, Rekha, it's not important what you teach, it's how you make a student feel. Because when you make a student feel good, this is David Henderson, and they will automatically get motivated. Once you engage the child, they'll get automatically. It may take, what Nita you were asking, they don't get the science behind it. But if you engage them, it may take a little longer. They will eventually understand it. But if they are not engaged, they may get the content knowledge for examination, assessment purposes, but they will forget it soon. So trick is to get them engaged, and coming from learning environment point of view, which is my specialization, is students spend 20,000 hours in a classroom by the time they finish their university. So what type of people are we making them there? And if we have a positive learning environment, student outcomes improve. So get them engaged, not first lesson, second, third, they will come with answers, or they will find answers themselves. How is it working?
Yes, I guess that's the key, is to keep working and keep figuring out the answers.
Doing the good work, baby steps.
Thank you so much. So with that, let us conclude today's webinar. I'm going to share the screen to show the teaser for next week's speakers, and it's actually the team from IISER Pune that will be.
Yeah, you might find some of them familiar.
Yes.
Yeah, we will be tackling one of the near and dear topics of teachers, which is assessment and learning, which are basically the two sides of the same coin. And we wish to highlight especially online assessment. So do join us. We will be sharing.
Send us the link. Send us the link, and we will definitely come on.
Sure. We will be sharing some of the good online evaluation tools, as well as our perspectives about what we feel about online assessment and assessment in general. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you next time. Please feel free to write to us regarding your feedback. What do you feel about this webinar series? We have just 2 more webinars to go, and we hope that you have been liking this webinar series so far. Do write to us. There is no separate feedback link or a feedback form. We will be conducting a thorough feedback at the end of the webinar series. Thank you so much.